Okay, at the point in time when I was considering my choices in life, I went down the road less traveled, so to speak. I actually had a place in a U.S. university after national service to do engineering. At that point in time, I didn't want to do engineering anymore, so I decided to go out and work for a few years. And in that time, I began to realize that I needed to have at least a degree qualification, and so that's something that I decided upon. Having said that, there are a lot of, I don't know whether this is the right term to use, but a lot of Mickey Mouse universities or Mickey Mouse institutions out there that provide degree programs, right? That you're not so sure about its credibility. But at that point in time, when Kaplan was offering the degree course with UCD, right, it looked like one of the more credible courses, so that's why I chose to do it with them. Okay. Well, the course was definitely good because of the way it was structured. It still allowed me time to work, right, which meant that I could pay for my course without having to rely on my parents, and that was a good thing for me. And then so the time flexibility was good. At the point in time, we also had good channels of feedback if we felt something wasn't going entirely right. And after that, the after story is a lot more interesting because the very first job that I applied for was with the Embassy of Portugal in Singapore. And the man who was eventually to become my boss was the economic and commercial counselor of the embassy. Funnily enough, when I was doing my interview, he went through my CV and he noted that I studied at UCD, and coincidentally, prior to his posting in Singapore, he was the economic and commercial counselor of the embassy in Portugal, in Dublin. So, I mean, of course, I had to get in on my own merit, but it was definitely a good point of interest, and we had a good chat about it. So that definitely helped my prospects in that. Yeah. There was once I was speaking with an education counselor, and she said to me, unless you're going for like a government job or something where you really need to come from an Ivy League university or something like that, right? Universities in general will provide you with the educational foundation that you need to work in just about any kind of sector, depending on what your major is, of course. I'm not going to mention any names, but of course, I did research on other courses offered by different schools apart from Kaplan. And the one thing that I liked about the UCD course with Kaplan was that the way they structured it, we had prior to every term, we had a pre-course project, like a mini project. And then we had the coursework proper where we had to submit our tutorials and things like that. And then we had a post-project after that. So I thought it was quite good because there are some institutions that will take its students through a course of a year, right? And everything is then dependent on the final examinations, which I don't think is a very holistic way of learning. So I preferred that method of learning, and of course the class interaction as well. Well, the things that are going for it, like I said, to your last question, I think they need to consider that learning is not just about exams. That you do need to consider what kind of coursework you go through and what kind of projects that you go through. Like for example, when I did my business strategy module, right? I actually really enjoyed it because the amount of research that we had to do, and it really taught me a lot. And it's, not just about business strategy, but even about business accounting, because we had to read financial statements and things like that. And going through that, right, definitely prepared me a lot better to then go into when I was working for the Embassy of Portugal, I had to look at companies a lot. I had to look at their financial statements and all to determine if they were companies that were suitable for us to approach in terms of foreign direct investment. So my advice would be, consider what is holistic and don't consider just what you're going to get on your final exam. Now, there are definitely differences. You have to admit that. Things like having a strong alumni association to belong to. Having said that, I find that there are a lot of local grads who don't actually have anything to do with the alumni. So that's one at least fairly credible point. Having said that, I think that in terms of the quality of education that you get, in terms of the quality of the qualification that you get, there isn't really a lot of difference, because at the end of the day, I think that the marketing of yourself is the most important thing. You can have, do well in your studies, do well when you are in the course, right? But at the end of the day, what you proactively do with it is by far more important. So to that extent, I don't think that there is a very big difference. There hasn't been for me, at least.